Trick or treat, meet and greet. Give me something good to eat. Fresh and buds now.
Fresh and
Okay, folks, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds, and we welcome back the Falcon of the West, an OG bud, Taylor Morrow of the Attack Action Podcast, fresh off of 100 episodes. How's it going, my friend? Welcome back.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be back. Is this my third time back? Am I the most back person? Or has Mo Bogsley passed me? Who's ahead of me here? Because I feel like I need a rival, you know? I don't have any rivals. There's no animosity in my life. That's not true. There's so much. Please. I need friends only. Anyway, thanks for having me. Yeah. I'm super glad I had the cosmic energy had aligned, because right before you asked me, I was just thinking in my brain, like, I wonder if I could ask if I want to be on Fresh and Buds. I just kind of want to check in with Tommy. Maybe I'll have him on my podcast. And then you messaged me like a couple weeks later, and I was like, tight. So here I am.
I felt the vibrations. I knew that was in the universe, and I appreciate it. And I don't know what the tally is on the amount of guest visits are at this point. Mo Bogsley is on a lot because, well, he's just around, and I like having him on, and he would probably love to be your rival. I'm speaking on his behalf. He is my son, after all, and he is a sweetheart, and so are you. So it'd be kind of funny. But hey, listen. We've been long time flesh and blood buds, battle bros, even perhaps, and we're in for a good episode because there's a couple things I want to check up on you and what's going on with you, but also it's going to be Worlds this weekend, which is exciting. It's always exciting when Worlds comes up because you get to see a lot of great flesh and blood played, and people are pretty hyped. We're probably, by the time this airs, we might already know what the next set is. And I'll make you call that shot as well, which should be interesting. And I want to get your thoughts on what the Rosetta meta has been, because we have a full snapshot of each week of the Pro Quests and kind of what the best decks were each week. So we'll get into that and much more. But first of all, well, how are you, and what's new in the Attack Action Podcast universe?
I'm good. It is at work. It's kind of a weird time for the way our school calendar works. We're right at the end of this like super long grind without any breaks, like no holidays, anything like that. And then it's really close to whatever it is, the first thing in November, Veterans Day or something like that. And that's kind of like the gateway holiday, because then that happens, and it's Thanksgiving, and then it's Christmas, and then it's President or Martin Luther King, and then presidents, and then anyway, so it's like the gateway break that leads you into all of the other goodie breaks that make it pretty cool being a teacher. So, and then it's the split here. It's basketball season is about to start, and fall sports are wrapping up. And so there's, this, as the seasons transition, so do the sports ones. Mm-hmm. And so I'm good, but I'm a little strung out. I have so many freshmen in one of my classes, and basically what I've been teaching them is how to be in class, not what is health.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I empathize with both you and the kids because I was not a great student, if anybody couldn't tell already. But by my playing mostly. And it's got to be tough. I don't know, like, even as an adult who works, who'll get days off, the day before you get the day off or the long weekend, and then the day after is pretty much useless. But you're an adult and you just make up for the work at some point, right?
Yeah.
Kids, they need to kind of do the work all the time, right? And you got to get them on task right away. So that's got to be a difficult thing to do on top of, being a star Flesh and Blood player and podcaster.
Yeah. It is. I'm so good at all three of those things, and heavy is the crown, as they say. But yeah, I'm good. I don't know how long do you have to talk about all of the stuff going on in my life. I feel like this is a pithy show, so we'll move on to the podcast.
No, I'll just bill you later. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay, sweet. Maybe later in the podcast we'll get into my existential crisis I'm going through. So, podcast is going great. We're in season 2 now of the Attack Action podcast. We just did our 100th canonical episode of the podcast, which was pretty cool. We've done more than 100 episodes of stuff, but some of them were slightly different, not the main podcast feed. So we've actually been past 100 things we have done. But in terms of actual, in quotations, whatever that we consider in our podcast art form that are main timeline, Earth A universe podcasts. We did it. We did 100, or I guess I basically did 100, and now we're in season 2, on to the next 100. So feels good. It's cool to have reached a milestone of 100 things.
It is very cool, and you guys are bi-weekly mostly.
Yeah,
but the longest running podcast, if I'm not mistaken, in the Flesh and Blood world, for those of you who don't know, it is the first podcast I listened to about Flesh and Blood, and it will be the last. No, and it is very exciting, and you got a whole new cast of characters that you podcast with now. It's ever changing, and the one constant has always been you, which is very very cool. You're very much the life force of that podcast, and that's listen, I'm proud of you, buddy.
Hey,
So,
thank you.
congrats.
I appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, to do that many episodes, and then me and Isaac started it, and then I forgot how much later into our podcast life that Colin got added in, and then Colin got added in as a regular, and then we brought in most recently Blake Meyer and Zane Johnson, and it has changed up the dynamic. The soul of the show is still there, but going from 2 hosts in somebody's closet to now 4 buddies over the internet, is slightly different, but it's still the soul of the show, which is just friends talking about the game and trying to be introspective, critical, and talking about the game in a way that is hopefully really relatable to the majority of people, because even though we're some of us on the podcast are B tier players, maybe A- players, why listen to us? We don't top 8 pro tours and stuff, so it's we have our opinions, which may be correct or may not, but yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say. We're filling the space that is not that of the professional player and meta chaser.
And I think that's a pretty important space because the reality is not everybody will be the top tier, but they want to do well at Armory. They want to, actually commiserate about how they didn't do well at Armory.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it's a real thing and will continue to be so. But I mean, you're a humble guy, right? You're talking about B tier, A minus tier, but I'm talking to a ProQuest winner here. And there have been rumors, and I don't mean to bring this up, but I've been seeing the comments online that Taylor is washed. He's old. He's a boomer, a flesh and blood boomer. He doesn't know what the new cards do. And here he is winning a ProQuest here in 2024. Can you tell us all about it?
Well, first, I would love to see these comments because that type of negativity, I'm sure, would boost our algorithmic numbers and reach a wider audience. So feel free to copy and paste those on wherever our podcast is found. That'll help us out. Yeah, I won a ProQuest, our local ProQuest. I wish it was like this big story of triumph and grinding, and there was a montage and then I win and the crowd goes wild. But really it was just like I kind of locked in on Florian pretty early, or just the Earth Heroes, and then was like, I don't know about Verdance. Maybe I'll go over here with Florian. And then Yuki had like a really tight list and had some results and was like kind of doing some content based around Florian. And so I just like, instead of doing a ton of playing, I did a ton of conversation and watching gameplay and listening to what somebody who built the deck and knew what it needed to do in the early parts of the meta, and that just like got me there, And I think it's something the big thing was I just like had a plan for everything and knew what I needed to do, and that I feel like so many times in the game is most of the battle. As long as you like know what you're doing, then you can like use your skill to enact that game plan. And that's kind of just what I did. And I had to beat 2 Enigmas, and it was like pretty tense, and it happened. And, big shout outs to Yuki and Zane. Like I had a lot of conversations about cards I wanted to change and why cards weren't good or better or blah, blah, blah. And I just was like, all right, I'm not going to change anything. Let's just freaking run Yuki's list and let's do it. And that's like really the first time I like net decked at a tournament. But I guess I took Zach Bunn's list one time and did abysmal, but learned from that and didn't do all of like the homework needed to understand the deck. And so like that's what I did. But then also Florian is just basically like Runeblade Arachne, so it was the jump to do that was not that hard, and I have a Runeblade background, so, and then I have my master's degree in podcasting, so hire me for your flesh and blood job.
And a minor in assassin. That's very nice.
Yeah.
It is kind of interesting when I saw that you won with Florian. I think back to when you played a lot of Chain, especially when I first met you. And
oh yeah.
Well, while I almost would argue that Aurora feels more like Chain in a way, where Florian has like the kind of graveyard and banish thing going on, and the grindier thing going on, but like Aurora had that kind of like you got to piece together the sequencing. But they're both rune blades in that way. And I have to imagine the muscle memory took you to at least a point where you could put yourself in the position to win. And then, sometimes all it takes is just doing the research, and that's a pretty cool feat, to be honest. I mean, you say there's not a lot of triumph there, but like that's kind of cool. It's like, hey, you hit the books and it paid off, right?
Yeah, that's true. I did homework and then got an A on the test. So studying does pay off. But no, yeah, Florian, I mean, I think just fits how I've grown to play the game, to really like to play the game. Like you block and you manage some things, and then you kind of have this. He has this kind of addicting quality where the hero power is turned on, and then now you're like you've been slightly behind the whole game, and that's another thing you're managing is not getting too far behind, because once Florian has composted, then you can the math and the value you get out of your cards is just so crazy, and then you just rune blade them to death, which is pretty fun. So I just really, really also enjoy that play style. So yeah, boom.
Well, you did it. Will you be going to London to play?
I would really like to. Me and my beautiful wife have to sit down and crunch some numbers, because she is going to Italy for her sister's birthday, like the next month. So we have to make sure we have enough. We can afford both things.
Mm-hmm.
So I am going to try to do that. I would like to. Yeah, shorter flight. They speak English, and as a dirty American, that's the only language I speak.
Sure.
And yeah, it's a cool opportunity, and it fits in. Pro Tour London is like the first weekend of our spring break.
Oh,
so
wow.
It makes it like really easy for me to not have to take off too much work to be able to do it. So it's like it's a really good opportunity, because never once has can we curse on your podcast?
Yes,
I forget.
Yes, go for it.
Okay.
I'll get
never
demonetized by my fake sponsors at the beginning, but that's all right. They don't need to know.
Yeah, they don't listen. Come on, People listen to like 10 minutes of the podcast, and then they're like baby throws up on them, and they like don't listen to the rest of it. Yeah, never once has fucking anything lined up for me as a teacher. It's just like, oh yeah, nationals is the week and school starts, and it's like I can't just put in a leave notice for that first weekend. So anyway, so it's lining up. So I'm pretty excited. I would really like to go join our Attack Action Podcast Patreon to fund my trip to London.
Well, I hope. Hey, go join it right now, folks. Right now, join the Patreon, or just join mine, and I'll just send the money Taylor's way. Because I did not qualify for the Pro Tour. I made top 8 this past weekend with the old Riptide, and then lost.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just wish I ran into the aggro decks that were in top 8, and not the Enigma that I lost to in Swiss, who just knew, like, I'm not attacking with any ward things, and I'm popping out that 10k reunion and going to town.
Ugh.
You know what?
Have you top 8'd every season? Do you always top 8 like a RTN or a ProQuest?
Yeah. I think I can't think of the last season I didn't. So,
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I'm on the cusp. I've qualified for Nats twice now, which is cool. Just got to get that coveted PQ win. So I'll have to wait till the next.
They're hard, man. You gotta win.
Yeah.
You gotta win. You can't just get top 4.
I know.
It's much harder.
It is much harder. I feel like I have a better shot of top 8ing like a calling to just like automatically get the PTI, which I think is like a delusion. I don't think that is true, but hey, listen, we'll get there eventually. So I was going to ask you about basketball. You already kind of talked about sports.
Oh, yeah.
But I do want to ask, or at least state something and kind of, bounce it towards your way like a basketball.
Ooh, okay. Bounce pass.
So, I know that you coach basketball.
I do.
And I have a love-hate relationship with basketball. I had a really negative experience in high school with high school basketball, which I think haunted me for a little bit. And now that I'm getting older, I felt like the NBA was whatever. I'd watch the tournament sometimes, but this past NBA playoffs I watched, and I really enjoyed it actually. So I kind of noticed this interesting thing, Taylor, that you something that I had never really thought about because I hadn't thought about basketball since I was a kid, right?
Right.
But now I'm
Right.
thinking about it as a accomplished flesh and blood podcaster. And I noticed, well, you want to go down each possession, you want to edge out your opponent by 2, 1, or maybe even 3 points. That feels a lot like flesh and blood to me, my friend. Is that something that draws you to flesh and blood as a basketball fan, someone that kind of like really is ingratiated into the basketball world?
This is an incredible question, I must say. I think this is the best question anybody has asked me on ever in my life, actually.
Oh,
You know,
okay. I did it.
you did it. Okay, so yeah, so what you uh one of the things that I think is really fun about basketball is analytics and using numbers to like tell a story or figure out like what is good and what is bad, you know? So one of the things you definitely look at is your points per possession. So the closer you are to 1, the better you are at offense.
Mhm.
And then the game is kind of then your points per possession versus their points per possession. And so that's why like kind of common talk around efficiency, offensive efficiency, right, is 3-pointers, dunks, and then free throws, because those are the ones that if you take a lot of those and shoot them at kind of average or above, then you have a really high points per possession. Like if you think about if you shoot 9 3-pointers
Mhm.
and you make 3 of them, those are 9 different possessions that netted you 9 points. So that's 1 point per possession, right?
Mhm.
But you're only shooting 30%.
Yeah.
But that's fine because that's a point per possession. Same thing with free throws. If you shoot 2 free throws and you only make 1, that's 1 point per possession. That's super good, right? So that's why those have a big incentive. And then defensively, then the game is like, okay, well, I have to take away, like, I don't want to foul you. I don't want you to get wide open 3-pointers, and I don't want you to dunk the basketball. So, like, then our strategy is to force you to take those longer 2-pointers that are like off of a dribble, because that's like your lower percentage. And if the majority of your shots come from that shot, then your points per possession is lower. So then, like, that's the math of the game. But then there's the whole like strategy of how you accomplish, those things, because basketball is a invasion sport. So like I'm trying to invade your space to score at your goal, and then on defense I'm trying to take away space so you can't score on my goal. And then how that relates, I guess, to flesh and blood is that sometimes flesh and blood is like can be that analytics of points per possession, or whatever we're doing now, coming up with our own analytics on Talishar for like value per
Mhm.
turn or whatever, or turn cycle, which is one way to think of the game. But then there's also the like taking away that space and manipulating that space. That's kind of your like strategy throughout the game. Like, oh, I know that I have this 3-card combo. I know these 2 cards I'm looking for, so I can block with these other ones. Or like, here's what 5 cards could do in my deck, right? If I have that space to use that and that sort of thing. So I don't know if I've ever made that connection, because what I really like, I mean, coaching basketball, I think the thing I enjoy the most is mentoring young people and giving them the experience I felt like I never had from any of my coaches. But there's this strategy of I love coming up with my like baseline out of bounds plays, like how I'm going to manipulate my offense to like get a tricky score and that sort of thing. And Flesh and Blood, I think I think people need to look at Flesh and Blood more in that way. Like if I play in this way, if that makes my opponent think of X, but really I have Y, then maybe that's a better play, even though my points per possession is maybe lower. But maybe it isn't. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Hopefully that makes sense. I think we get there.
I think you got there. Yeah, I mean, listen, I just thought it was kind of interesting thing I noticed about basketball, and like in a way that when you present the pummel, right, and you don't have it, right? Like I think that's what you kind of get at with the X and Y, right? You present the pummel, you don't have it, and your opponent plays around it, right? And you didn't have it, and you kind of really got them, right? I mean, it kind of feels like in a way where I don't know. I mean, I don't play a lot of basketball. It's like, oh, maybe you make them think that they need to start shooting threes because you're being so efficient down, even just like in your field goal percentage or whatever. And they're like, oh, I need to start overreaching because they're doing this one thing or they're playing me a certain way. I think that's kind of cool. I was like looking at other games and kind of comparing them to Flesh and Blood, if that makes sense.
I think it totally does make sense. I think there's, and I could be wrong. Maybe we've done this in Magic before, or maybe other games where you play a certain way for a portion of the game to condition your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing happens in basketball. Like you do a ball screen, and either offensively or defensively, this can happen. But let's say offensively, the big guys always roll into the hoop, and we condition the defense to expect that. But then the next time we run a pick and roll, the big guy pops and shoots a three, and now the defense is out of position expecting one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could do the same thing potentially in Flesh and Blood. Is like I dagger with beckoning misblade first every time. Boom, bam, boom, and then a thing, and But then there's one turn where I spider's bite first, and now my opponent maybe is thrown off by my like change up in gameplay, and maybe they're not. Maybe they make the right read, but there's like maybe a non-zero amount of times they're like, what? And then they block spider's bite for no reason. And then you come in with beckoning misblade and they're like, shit, I wasted a card. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that maybe could be in the game as a strategy more often, is maybe my opinion that we could learn from other sports. Also, you want to talk about your basketball trauma? Should we work this out on the show right now?
Oh no! Wait a second. No, this is my bug. No. Basically, I mean, I'll be honest with you, and this is going to be something for anybody to take, because we all. I mean, I assume we all experience things like this. I was young. I was going out for the basketball team. I had played a little bit in middle school, but I had moved between middle school and high school, so I think it was like a freshman trying out for the basketball team. And it had been a minute, and I didn't really remember my rudiments or whatever. And like I was having a bad tryout, and like the older kids were just, like making fun of me. And which is like, I could take that in stride, I think, normally I'm pretty good at it. But my dad had shown up to pick me up, and getting made fun of in front of your dad, I don't know, just hits a little bit harder. I'll tell you that, folks. So I think that's what scared me away from basketball for a minute, because I was just like, that was too much, So
that sucks. That makes me sad. That's just bad coaching. Like, you should notice that, not have that be part of the atmosphere on your team. So It's your coach's fault. It's not those kids' fault, and it's those kids' parents' fault.
Yes,
it's the parents' fault.
And we will have a discussion with them on the Patreon if anybody wants to check it out. No, no, but I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that discussion about basketball and Flesh and Blood until I had to be vulnerable, and I will never forgive you, Taylor. No, it's okay to be vulnerable. I swear. Now,
Yes.
time for to put you in a tough position. I'm going to read you the flavor text off of a card. And you're going to tell me what
that. Oh, okay. Shit. Oh,
you've done this to me.
The notes
before.
just say flavor. I don't know what they are. Yeah. Fuck. Okay. I'm fine. I'm
going to give you the flavor text, folks. We should all be. This is something we should all be doing. Reading the flavor text on cards. It helps.
Yes.
Before the age of man, the specter of war loomed over Wraith as the great Aesirs roamed the land. Let me know if you need a hint, as I'll give you color and then class in that order if you want hints.
Do I get points off for hints?
No points off. I mean, just
Okay.
style points, I guess.
Oh, shit. Okay, read it to me one more time.
Before the age of man, the specter of war loomed over Wraith as the great Aesirs roamed the land.
It's tough. I feel like this is a fake out. Like so many. It feels like it's an illusionist card because it has the word specter and Aesir, but so many illusionist cards have so much freaking text on them that maybe it isn't. I have to guess the whole card. Okay, I need a hint.
All right, it is a blue, and I'll also say it's a blue majestic.
Okay, blue majestic. Is it Maragai?
No, I will also say it's not an illusionist card.
Shit, psyched myself out. It's not an illusionist card. Oh, and it's a blue majestic. It's a blue majestic, non-illusionist. Aesir War. Is it Destructive Aethertide?
It is
or something
not.
like that?
It's from Everfest.
Okay. Fuck. I give up.
It is Imposing Visage. The blue Guardian action blocks 3. X3 cost. I couldn't give you the cost. I feel like maybe that would have given away, although I would have been like, oh, it's that one card. I wouldn't have known the name. Search your deck for an aura card with cost X or less, put it into the arena, then shuffle. And it has also go again. Very interesting. Sorry to do that to you, Taylor, but
no, that was pretty good. Was that just a card sitting on your desk?
It's sleeved up over here, and I grabbed it before the show. I was looking for cards with flavor text, and that was the first one I saw.
Pretty good.
It was a good one.
I got boned.
It's okay. Maybe that will see play in. I think that one sees a little bit of play here and there.
Were Nationals Bravo decks running that because of new? So they were like running crummy non-attack actions as their blue base, so that if they ran into a new, it's just like whatever, play that. I don't care. It's not Macho Grande, so
yeah, it's true. Maybe they were, or like the Bravo Aura decks, like the kind of
the thing we've said that we should have for 100 years now, and we don't have.
Yeah. I mean, Cale McCree swears by it still, but I'm not entirely sold. But listen, Taylor, we have some important things to talk about. Your fresh faves from Rosetta. Are you ready for them?
I totally am ready.
Taylor, who was your favorite hero from Rosetta?
Hashtag loyal to the soil. So it's Florian and Verdance. I can't pick which one I like better, but it's both of them. Loyal to the soil, baby.
I understand. The Earth stuff is very cool. Very, very cool.
It is. And I was like not into Decompose, but then once Rootbound Carapace was spoiled, I was like, oh, sick. We're going to do this on defense too. Like, that sounds so cool. And yeah, just I really like how they've. I'm trying to think of a different word than fleshed out because I feel like I say that a lot, and then we're in this game called Flesh and Blood, and I feel like a twat. But they've really innovated on what Earth feels like and is like, and how it plays and that sort of thing. And so I've really liked that. Like I like how everything blocks for 2, but then it's like, hey, we'll give you embodiments of Earth to help you. You know, I just think that's kind of cool, clever design. That's fun.
Yeah, it certainly feels more earthy than Tails. Although Tails, I mean, like it was just beefy stuff and then some recursion with like
Yeah.
Sotomorrow and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, super cool. Now, what was your favorite weapon?
I think it's got to be Verdant Shoots. I think that's just in the limited set. I think that is kind of cool. I wonder too if you can actually play it in constructed. It still feels like because of how the seasons, like the set comes out, we have tournament stuff like right away, that like you kind of have to scramble to figure out what's really viable and do some quick math and just like try to iterate on like that thing. But I just wonder if Verdant Shoots is like an actual classic constructed viable weapon. Doesn't seem like it because of math, but it just is. It's kind of cool. Pitch an Earth card, come in for 4, maybe get a surge and surge effect, and maybe get a embodiment of Earth. I don't know.
It feels like down the line, if we get more blue Earth non-attacks, like I
Yeah.
think like it feels like almost like a no-brainer, and you know you can just start just doing that every turn. I like it, although the Aethertide seems to be the way to go. Now, what was your favorite equipment? We had some pretty cool Earth ones.
They totally do. Um, Man, I don't know. I feel like just well grounded is just so good,
Mm-hmm.
you know? I mean, I could pick frickin' Barkskin of the Millennium Tree. Like that card is like insane, you know, but of course it's insane. It's like the legendary that has to persist for all of Earth time, you know. So that card's obviously like insane, but well grounded is like um it's just so good. You get those 4 cards and then it's so versatile. It's like helps you cover up breakpoints, helps you cover up against reactions because it's like an instant. And then, you know, obviously it goes to the graveyard. So then it's another Earth card you can banish. It's freaking sweet.
That's a great answer. Now, what was your
Thanks.
favorite card you throw in your deck from Rosetta?
That's also really tough. I'm just going to say, because this is what like I've been noodling around with a lot, is Channel the Millennium Tree. So I'm not the first person to come up with this. I think somebody in one of the early callings I was inspired by played like a arcane version of Florian on stream. But basically, like Channel the Millennium Tree makes one of your rune chants attack for 4, and against Runeblade, people really only bring AB1, and so like if the matchup is slow enough, you get a buttload of value. You know, you basically do 6 free damage to them if you have the arcane and Millennium Tree sticks around for 2 turns, and then if you play all 3 of them, you know that's half their life total that they just like could not prevent, plus all of your other effects. So that's been really cool, and the fact that it has like it, you know, it's another channel Mount Heroic type thing, but then it also we like are making armor out of its bark, and just that whole flavor thing, and it seeming like a really important feature in Aria, in Candlehold, I guess, makes it freaking awesome. So, Channel the Millennium Tree.
It is one of the first cards I brewed with Florian with the old not Reaping Blade. Dread Scythe. I just thought,
Yeah.
it's kind of like similar. You could do the same thing for the same amount of resources, I guess, with Reaping Blade. But if you already have one rune chant, you can't do the same thing. So I don't know. I just Dread Scythe's sick, and I just want to.
Dread Scythe is so cool.
Yeah, I just
It's so
play
cool.
that.
Yeah, it's crazy to just like pitch a blue and then your weapon comes in for 7, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
That's
we
rock,
love that.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost as good as rock. Holy smokes.
And the fact that like it gives you that extra level of like sometimes when Millennium Tree is out, you're like, well, I kind of need to hold on to cards to make it worth it. But then with Dread Scythe, you're like, okay, you're right. This is a good clapback. I'm gonna block for 9 and then send 7.
Mhm.
You know, and then Millennium Tree is gonna go away, but still like it's a totally fine play to have, you know, on that second turn of Millennium Tree. So yeah, it's sick. Good job, brother.
Yeah, brother. Now this is a newer question that we've been asking. Shout out to Junior, who actually just started getting into the Attack Action podcast after getting into the
Hey,
game.
thanks, Junior.
Shout
Love
out,
that.
Junior. What class and talent would you be if you were from the region of Wraith?
Yeah, this is hard because I don't know if there's enough classes and or talents to encompass who I am as a human being,
Mm-hmm.
but I will try. So I think probably like Earth Warrior. You know, I feel like Warrior is kind of the jock of, not that I'm like particularly jockey, but in terms of the flesh and blood demographic, I'm a little on. There were a spectrum of nerd,
Mm-hmm.
shut in, and pants you in the locker room jock. I'm closer to jock than I am nerd. So, and then Warrior feels like the jockiest class. They're the athletes, you know.
Yeah.
They're out there just doing it with no magic and their skills. So that, and then Earth. I just love being outside, and it's, I think, my favorite flavor of elemental, and is maybe my favorite talent other than Shadow, but I don't think of myself much as a Shadow person. So Earth it is.
Earth it is. And yeah, I mean, listen, any of the heavy hitters classes I think would have qualified for the jock. I think Warrior makes the most sense. For the more like slender kind of jocks.
They have abs, you know. I don't have abs, but
you might
they
have at one
abs.
point. Listen, you know.
Yeah, right.
We all get older. I never had them, but you know. But hey, listen. That's a great answer from a great person.
Thank you. Have you answered that question yourself? And did I miss that episode?
No, I mean, not on this. So, the 03 Dropcast just asked me that question.
Oh, nice.
And I forget what I answered because, I think I probably said brute because I just kind of a like idiot. Not to say brutes are idiots, but like that's just how I approach things. And then I think I might have said Earth as well, like an Earth brute. I think that's
sick.
I mean, I like outside. I like stuff like that. And I mean, the idea of an Earth brute is probably too strong for this game, to be honest.
As we were coming onto this podcast, just speaking of the Earth, I was thinking about how one of my favorite channels in your Discord was like cool thing Tommy finds or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of it was just like pictures of cool sticks you had found.
Yeah, cool sticks. A possum that was in our in our driveway last week. Weird spiders.
It's great. So yeah, you're a man of the Earth.
Yeah. I dig it. I dig it. Pun intended. All right. See you guys later.
We've done it.
Listen, Worlds is this weekend. Did you know? Now you do. It is going to be one hell of a tournament. I hope a lot of like unanswered questions, or some questions we think are answered but might not be. But this meta that has been Rosetta has been a little, it's been a little wild, right? So, since the release of Rosetta, it's kind of been up and down because we had ProQuest season. We had a couple of Battle Hardens and maybe even a calling that I believe Pablo Pintor won because, of course.
God, that feels like 100 years ago, right? But it was like not that long ago.
I'm just gonna say it now. He's my pick for Worlds too. So
tight.
It was the return of Runeblade to the forefront, right? We get this set Rosetta where we got, not only do we get 2 new Runeblade heroes, but we also got a lot of support for existing Runeblades. Mainly Viserai, but Vincent certainly liked a lot of what was printed as well. Now, just looking at the first week, I'm not going to read down everything, but the top of the meta was pretty much neck and neck, Aurora and Enigma at 23 and 22 wins, followed by like Azalea, New, and Viserai, and then Florian kind of rounding out the top like 6. Of those 6, it was 3 Runeblades. Now, what did you make of this first week? And did you win the ProQuest the first week? Were you one of those 7?
I did.
Florians?
Yeah, I'm one of the 7 Florians.
How about that?
Yeah. Paving the way for what turns out to be week 4. Nope, they're the same. Never mind. But there's like less events. Yeah, I mean, I think that made sense. Like it's just a new set. People aren't really sure how to play against Aurora, and Enigma is kind of a deck that's like, well, if you brought the wrong deck, you just lose to it. So it makes like a ton of sense that those two, aggro always does really well at the beginning of metas, and then Aurora has a lot of like shenanigans, and if you don't know what the shenanigans are, you're gonna be like, wait, what? You're taking there's a step after like damage is dealt that you can like do a thing, So it just made sense, I think, in what we would see, and maybe we didn't pay enough attention of those like the new Viserai, Florian, Zen, level of decks going on there. So it turned out how I expected.
Yeah, and certainly we're going to kind of see as we go through that the common thread of this season was mostly Enigma, right? And it's just one of those, it's very interesting because I feel as if Enigma, and there's certainly a lot of skill involved in playing Illusionist in general and playing it really well and piling it to wins. But, when I think of Enigma, I always think, well, it's so much ward, and that's how you win. Like, these rune chants, are they an issue? Do you find the Runeblade into Enigma matchup to be good, or is it a little bit tougher? Obviously, with Florian, it's a slower version of a Runeblade, though.
Yeah, the Florian Enigma matchup is really skill intensive. Because there's like the threat of potentially fatiguing them, and they also like are trying to figure out how to like overwhelm you so you can't like clear their board. But then you have like things like Summer's Fall that allow you to like tuck really problematic ward auras. What do we call those? Auras? I guess they're auras that have ward. So there's those, and then like once you turn the corner, and then you're like making 2 rune chants every time you make a rune chant, then you have the reverse rune chant overwhelming engine. So then you have this like they're trying to build spectral shields to cover that bullshit up, and you're trying to have enough bullshit to get over their bullshit. So yeah, the matchup really depends on like how quickly you can like kind of decompose, and then also in that time like not get overwhelmed. But then for like Viscerai, like you just make so many rune chants now that it's you could make 4 or 5 a turn, and that's all individual pieces of ward that they have to get through, or 2 cards from hand, which then makes it harder to block the physical attacks. So that matchup's like pretty tough for Enigma. And then I think other than that, I don't know. I don't play Aurora, so those are the only 2 I can speak on via Rune Blades.
Well, to be honest, I would have to imagine that Aurora is pretty good at kind of going into Enigma, just the nature of a lightning hero, just being super fast and sending 0 for 4s. It just seems like pretty good there.
Yeah, and all the breakpoints for sure.
All the breakpoints. Now moving into week 2. Now there's something interesting that happens in week 3, and we'll get to that in a second. Week 2, kind of a similar top of the tables: Enigma, Aurora, Viscerai, Florian, New, and then followed by Zen's still doing stuff as well. That's worth noting.
Lingering.
Have you played against much new Zen? Post book Zen?
It's still pretty nuts. You're just like, all right. You're just like, this is 8 chain links this time. It's still the same. So it just doesn't have like the ability to, I don't know. It leans into Tigers more, which seems more fun, but you're still getting like a buttload of chain links. So the deck is still pretty good. It's just not like S tier broken, which makes it feel really weak. When you're like, I know what you used to do, but this is still really strong. But yeah, week 2 is really just like Runeblade City, It's Enigma and then 3 Runeblades that really take up a huge chunk of the meta share there.
Yeah, it was interesting. And the funny thing about Zen is I had just put away my Stonewall Gauntlet, and then I felt like I was like, all right, back out you come.
Totally.
Now, in week 3, though, this is when I don't know if it's the biggest shift of all time, but it was the first week of the Dash.io Armory deck. And this is something I haven't talked to you about. What are your thoughts on these Armory decks?
Oh, I think they're cool. I think they're a good idea. They are, I don't know, they're kind of weird though at the same time, because of like, it never feels good for products to come out that feel like they're forcing me to buy them because of the power level of cards in them. You know what I mean? I never like that feeling, but I think they're great for new players to get into the game, which I'm unsure, we don't, because like the people who are in the zeitgeist a lot about Flesh and Blood, right, are podcasters or YouTubers, and they're people like invested in the game. So we don't get a lot of stories of like, what I'm waiting for is the podcast where they're like, yeah, I picked up the Dash.io deck as my first deck, and now I love this game, and now I'm podcasting. Maybe that's out there. Maybe I don't know it's there. But I think they're a good product. But yeah, it's the power level of cards in them is just like, you're creating this scenario where a hero or a class is going to come out, and you're going to have this like expectation of very good cards, and maybe they'll get to a point where that like isn't really happening, and then people are going to be upset. People are upset no matter what, but anyway, I think they're good. They're cool. I would like to see more Jarl type stuff. I don't know if $60 is like what I would like to spend on that, but new heroes I think is a way better idea for that product than existing ones.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the Jarl one's interesting because I mean, I guess they're packing a lot of stuff into it, and it's new. We'll be kind of interested to see what the actual deck list is going to look like, and if the value is really there. If it's there, it's there. I will say anecdotally, sure, we are in the game, but I get comments on videos. People like picked up the KO Armory deck,
Oh, tight.
and just like really loved it. And then I actually this past weekend, an old friend of mine that had I had played flag football with, but was a big Magic player, reached out to me and said after Magic made some big crazy announcement that people hated. He's like, "Hey, this happened today."
Classic.
And then sent me a picture of his desk, and the -IO Armory deck was all getting sorted. And I was like, "That's awesome." I'm like, "Okay,
Love that."
He's like,
yeah, that's cool.
So I would. My only worries about has always been availability of these things, right?
Totally.
Because we see people take advantage of it all the time. But it's worth noting, week 3, what?
I would want to say one more thing just about the Jarl and the availability and stuff. Like, yeah, that's like the weird part is like how some stores get them and some stores don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't know how that makes sense business wise. But then like the Jarl product has to be so good because $60 is like a brand new board game that you can play for the rest of your life and never have to like invest in a culture and a community ever again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you get freaking Ticket to Ride for like $60, I'm sure, with some bells and whistles. And then you're like, I play board games now. And then maybe that's the only board game you play every Thanksgiving forever. You know what I mean? Which would be fine if you only did that with Jarl, but then you also need somebody else who, has done that with your $60 on a board game. You're just like, hey, I have this board game I can play with friends. With Jarl, you need another friend who has Flesh and Blood cards. So anyway,
yes,
that's my thought on that.
I agree. But guess what, Taylor? We have built-in friends at the Armory. At the Armory where we face off.
That's true. I watched that video and was like, I'm pretty hyped now.
That video was awesome.
That was really good. It was so fun too. Like Blake's in the background of that. Zane's in the background of that. Oliver is featured very prominent. Like all of my buddies are like there, which is awesome.
Oh, it's so cool. So well done. Yeah. But you know what else is well done? -IO in week 3. First week of the Armory deck coming out. 10 -IOs, 1 Armory, or not Armories, ProQuests.
ProQuests, yeah.
What do you make of this? Is this shadows of things to come? Because they're very concerned about high octane based on their rhetoric in that one video.
That's a crazy card. All of the cards are crazy now. Like the one that draws you cards is pretty nuts. Yeah, -IO is like pretty real. And 10 wins is significant, I suppose. There's still a shit ton of ProQuests happening, so they're like bound to win plenty. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I expect it to win that much. Maybe, I don't know if it's gonna. I mean, we see what happens in like week 4 here. It doesn't really like do that much better, but there's like way less ProQuests in terms of the total numbers. But I don't know if it's really going to surpass like how good Runeblades are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a good deck for sure. It's very good.
Yeah, it is a very good deck. Yeah, we see in week 4. I mean, Viscerai is the top dog, which is kind of cool for the OG Vis heads out there. Yeah, followed by New, and Enigma is like 5th down on the list, which is kind of, listen, people are prepared for that deck now. We see the kind of whole shape of how a meta evolves, and this is kind of the perfect little exclamation point at the end.
Yeah.
But -IO is an interesting deck to me because it feels, it's a glass cannon, right? You just want to attack. And if you're not doing that, you're probably not going to win, right? And if people can effectively block you. Now there are those high octane turns where, well, it doesn't matter how many cards you have to block with. They're going to push like 10 plus damage. You're going to fatigue yourself. And then it's also hard to sometimes have the correct like equipment to deal with things like a Kano that shows up and or like a Count Your Blessings deck that is going to do whatever they do and call it fun. And it is no, it's all valid, I swear. So it's going to be interesting to see first of all, like how Dash.io performs at Worlds, and I think that's going to be a big factor in if they do anything with High Octane, and also how the rest of these heroes that have kind of been hanging around the top, right? There's no like clear top dog, which is kind of interesting.
Which I like. I have a question for you, actually. So I feel like my perception of what people's perception that I have viewed is that kind of for whatever reason, the meta once Dash.io gets out, like revolves around that deck, whether how good or how prominent it is. Is that how you see it? Is my slice of the algorithm different than yours? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think so. Right. And the reason is I don't think we're going to see, like, if we all saw people running like all this item hate, right? Like everywhere. If you see it, then yeah, sure, I'll concede to that.
Sure.
But I think it's more like, hey, you got to be ready for aggro in whatever form it comes, right? In this meta, whether it is Aurora or Dash.io or even like Acilio, like we see him popping up here and there. So like you just got to be ready for it. And I think if you're ready for one, it's a nice kind of basis. That's the nice thing about aggro. Like as crazy as it is sometimes, it's one game plan. It's like figure how to defend it or race it.
Right.
It is hard to race some of them, so you gotta think about how you're gonna defend it, and then you just lose to Enigma anyway. So it's
yeah. Well, I think the prevalence of new in week 4, like he gets 10 wins, I think is a direct response to Dash.io, right? Like Assassin for sure just dunks on Mechanologist when they boost. Like whenever I've played Arachne into any boosting Mechanologist, like those are the easiest games I've ever played. Like, great, thank you for doing my job for me. I'm already going to block these cards, and then I'm going to send an attack that banishes another card off of the top of your deck, and, or attack your hand or whatever, So, yeah, I guess maybe that's my synopsis of the scenario. It's like, I don't think Dash.io can ever be insane because we just have classes, 3 of them that are, I'm going to say it, very good.
Yeah.
All 3 of them into boosting Illusionist. So there you go. And then they have to like somehow assemble like a crazy machine to be able to have enough staying power in the game to like get over you just being able to block really well and take away their cards. So yeah.
So yeah,
there you go.
I mean, I totally agree. The thing with Dash.io to me, and it's going to be, listen, we're going to get a little controversial. Dash.io is the aggro Kano. And what do I mean by that? Is, well, you know what? If nobody's prepared for it, you're going to just go in and steal some games because guess what? It's going to do some crazy powerful things, right? But it could also lose to itself. And you just and whatever. Yeah. But if you're prepared for it, like if everybody's ready for Kano, you don't see a lot of Kanos winning, right?
Yeah.
If everybody's ready for Dash.io, I don't think you're going to see as many Dash.ios winning. I do think the upside's a little bit better for Dash.io. But that's how I view a deck like that, especially when you can't. You have to run all mech cards, and
Yeah.
I hate to say it, not all mech cards are that good, right? You want to be running. I want to be running those CNCs and lane strikes, folks.
Right.
So that's just how I see it. Is that am I off the mark, Taylor?
No, I think that is very astute and is a good analogy to what that deck is. Yeah, I think that's great. You know, this is the meta you kind of want for like a big tournament. I don't know how LSS has pulled this off, but it's like there's, like you kind of said earlier, there's no clear best deck.
Mm-hmm.
And we love a rogue deck taking the tournament down, right? Like Fi comes out of nowhere, wins Worlds. Azuri wins Amsterdam. And if we can have the three-peat of kind of a rogue deck, nobody, in quotations, nobody talked about very publicly or was like on a radar, and we have that type of story, like this is the greatest year of Flesh and Blood ever in terms of like stories. You know?
Yeah. And like the fact that this meta could go anyway. Like, listen, it's gonna be Riptide, right? They just don't
love this take. Love it.
They just can't. Well, it depends on which Riptide. If it's aggro Riptides, yeah, whatever. Run into as many enigmas as you want. If you're fatigue Riptide, I would stay away from them. From personal experience, it's not fun. And
just like the fact you can frailty trap on a high octane turn where they're gonna pistol you 5 times is like so sick. That's like so cool. You're like, all right, that was attack for 1, and I dealt you a damage earlier. Like, that's baller. That's baller status.
And I Codex of Frailty the last turn. And
yeah. So now they come in for 0. Yeah.
Shooting blanks there. Yeah. So all right, let's call some shots for Worlds, and then we'll get to some listener questions. What is your expected winning deck? Your dark horse winning deck, and then who do you have winning it as a person?
Ooh, a person. Okay. I think expected deck, I'm going to go with Viscerai.
Whoa.
I think that deck has a flexible way to build it, and then a game plan, and split damage when Viscerai is good is a lot to deal with. And there's like disruptive elements now to that deck. So it could, I think, tailor itself to kind of have a good matchup spread in whatever the think tank of your testing team has come up with as the matchup spread. My dark horse, I think, is going to be Florian.
Okay.
Surprise. Maybe it is. I don't know. I guess I could have gone crazier and said Arachne, but we know that's not going to happen,
Yeah.
I think Florian could do it. That deck also, I think, all of the Rosetta heroes, except for maybe Aurora, but even Aurora feels still pretty under, not tuned, but explored is the right word. Like how, what's the core cards I need to run versus how flexible can it be into stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I think Florian's my dark horse there. Person I think that's going to win it is somebody from Australia, because I don't know if they've really ever had a big win. So let's just go with that country as a whole.
All right. I mean, you cast a wide net, sir. All right. I mean, those are some good choices. Some safe choices with the entire continent of Australia, and which is also a country.
How many Australians are going to be at Worlds?
That's true.
Is that, are they 40% of the population? I don't know.
Probably.
I don't think so.
We
5%.
We haven't really done the numbers. We'll have to.
Yeah.
They'll be in the
We'll
show
have to
notes.
crunch them later. Yeah. What are your picks, Tommy?
My picks are, I think the deck that is going to win the tournament is going to be Enigma. Right? That's my pick for the actual winning deck. My dark horse, though, is going to be Verdance. I've seen the power, right?
You have.
And, a lot of the thing about Worlds is and like Pro Tour, it all depends on like how good were the drafters, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can sling together 2 really good drafts and then enough constructed wins to get in the top 8, and then hope the top 8 bracket shakes out in your favor, I think Verdance could see a lot of good brackets. So
that's sick. That's a great take. See, it's the Earth Heroes.
I think, I mean, listen, she's doing some power. I mean, Life Gain happens to be good, I think. So
the oak tree grows slowly, but it is mighty once it is blossomed to its full potential.
I wish you would write me things like that in my DMs more often. I almost said Acilio there, though.
Ooh, but you did.
I mean, I've been playing a lot of Acilio. I think he's so much fun, and he can win, but I think he needs everything to slow down, right? I think that all these aggro mirrors are going to be kind of an issue. There are some cool mid-range Acilios out there, and they're neat and all, but it's still tough sledding into some matchups. So
it feels like that deck is like right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's maybe like B-, but like it just needs someone to be like the light bulb goes off, and then all of a sudden it's like solid A tier and has a chance to like take down a whole tournament. And it's like, now I have to learn how to play against this,
It's kind of interesting. Like if the tournament was like a bunch of victors and like that was kind of like what slowed everything down, I feel like Acilio has like good game into stuff like that. I don't know. I took a Mind Warp for 11 at ProQuest, and I mean it's scary. And I had just blocked out a bunch of physical damage. You're like, what's going on here? So.
This is my hot take. Mind Warp, overrated card.
Okay. Yeah. No. I am. I think you're right. I think it's still very good.
And this is maybe why I'm B tier.
No. Well, it's kind of interesting. So if you can only buff it a couple to the point where they'd have to give up a card anyway just to prevent the damage, it doesn't feel that great, right?
Right.
Here's my hot take.
Oh, okay.
Swell Tidings, underrated card.
Oh, yeah.
Card's awesome.
Yeah, that card's sick.
Yeah.
Great art, cool effect, lots of arcane damage.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically a card that lets you draw a card. How about that? Those cards are good. They banned them all.
They banned them all. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But and the person that I picked to win is Pablo Pintor, and for a couple of reasons. I think he's awesome as a person. I think he's a great player, and it's the one major tournament that he hasn't won. He's done Pro Tour, Callings. I don't know if he's won Battle Hardened, but he's always in the Callings day 2. So it's just like never gets to
I'm
play
sure
with
there's like a Battle Hardened Barcelona he won, and it was the same time as like Battle Hard Chicago, so North America didn't pay attention, but Europe knows, or something like that,
Oh yeah. Well, comment below if Pablo won a Battle Harden. I think he might have. I mean, listen, Pro Tour, Callings.
Doesn't matter if you've Callinged and Pro Toured and
it's only
that you haven't won a Battle Hardened.
It only matters if you did the Battle Harden. That's what I've.
Hot take. Guess who's won a lot of Battle Hardens?
Who?
Mr. Spurlock.
That's true.
Guess how many Pro Tours he's won?
0.
That's correct.
And
Coincidence? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, he's number one elo, right? At least for the World Cup thing. I'm not sure. I looked at it once and forgot it.
I haven't looked at it at all, but I believe you. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, we have some
that great job was to Brody, not you.
Oh. Okay. Well,
which I guess
that's all the time we have.
Channeling my inner Bogsley here. Like,
that's
good job
true.
to you, though, too, Tommy, for stuff.
Take it. Whoa. Listen. Don't fight, kids. You too. Capolo. Andrea Biaggi asks, well, first of all, states, congrats on 100 episodes.
Hey, thank you.
And then, yes.
Congrats on all of the gelato you ate in your most recent vacation.
I know, it looked amazing.
That was great. That's like the best thing on the internet is Capolo eating gelato in another Swiss city or village. Just like, here I am. Anyway, okay, go ahead.
I love gelato and I'm hungry. Congrats on 100 episodes. And what do you think is needed to bring Flesh and Blood to the next level?
Jesus, that's a crazy question.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. There's something. I think the consistency and timing of how we have all of the like the general outline of how we have Flesh and Blood OP seasons has been great.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really helpful. We need as a community to figure out how to play the game casually, you know? And I don't know what the answer to that is, but there needs to be, something where you're just like, I don't know. These games are really fun, but the winning them does not matter because of how fun they are. Like I get to do cool stuff somehow, which you already get to do in Flesh and Blood, but yeah, got to figure out how to play it casually.
I think we can. I mean, the community will do it. I hope. I think so. I think singleton, some kind of singleton deck building restriction sounds like it doesn't have to be multiplayer. It could be still PvP. I think. Yeah.
Go ahead. Keep going.
I just think singleton takes out a lot of the consistency in the game, but allows you to see a lot more cards. And that could do cool things together. I think that is probably what I would think could do it. But
yeah, there's also the level of like theme needs to be a little bit more heavy in it, like warrior cards only, no generics or something like that. Which maybe takes out some of the like interesting thing of using underused generic cards, but you don't want to play with those anyway because they probably suck. So, and then sometimes constrictions, like you said, singleton or whatever, add in a level of creativity. I would say also some of the best casual experiences I've had have been shout out to and RIP to OKNY. Like they did the Boombox and Bento Box. So Boombox is like 90 cards for Guardian, and you quote draft it, and then you play best out of 3. And you do the same thing with Ninja. Quote draft is when you just go like 7x7, and then you take cards out of there. They go to their YouTube page. It's there. That has been a really fun casual experience because it's like highly curated, and there's no level of like, okay, here's the quote better of the two decks, and then I still beat you because I just know how to play the game and you don't, type of conversation that goes on. And you have part of the game that's fun, that's like getting to build the deck on the fly. So it's like much more board gamey than card gamey.
Sure.
I guess in that way. So
yeah, any kind of cubing, I'm all for.
Hell yeah.
I have the Brute Cube ready to play whenever I get a
Like
chance.
That's you do?
Yeah, as Brute Cube, two Brute heroes, Reinar and KO, and then 2 homebrew Brutes in that cube.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to send me this list. Why am I just hearing about this now?
Well, I wanted to make a video about it, and then you know how that goes.
I'm
Then you
getting
don't
married
make
next
it.
month.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I know how that is. That sounds awesome. I think so. I guess what I will also say about this is like the format needs to be good enough or whatever it is to where it's something you want to play when it's not your main game, right?
Mhm.
Like I love the Star Wars Unlimited 2-player starters. Like those are just so fun. And like I don't need anything else in that game other than those. And I'm like, I'll buy the next one. I have the first 2 sets. And then like shout out to Tricky Jim. He came up with the Gym Leader Challenge for Pokemon, which is singleton format in monotype. So it's like if you're playing grass, it's all grass Pokemon and it's singleton
cool.
format. Yeah. And so it's like you're the real gym leader for, you're getting to be that part of the Pokemon video games where you're like, these are my Pokemons that I specialize in. And if Flesh and Blood had something like that, one of those things where you're like, I like really love playing Lorcana, but Flesh and Blood has this cool format that I like sometimes dip into. That's what the game needs for next level.
Sure. Hey, listen, we're gonna work on it. Me and Taylor.
Okay.
We'll fix
Just
it.
like our podcast we're supposed to do once a year.
Once a year. We did it once.
We did it once.
And it was a year.
And hope has not died in my heart for that. We're gonna get back to the Insidious chill.
We'll be chilling. I got hope. I got hope. I get married
I do too.
next month. After that, I'll have all the time in the world.
So much time.
So much time. Mr. Viz, aka Gary, asks, "What's the most underrated Runeblade card right now?"
Great question. Vexing Malice, underrated.
Underrated.
Was a powerhouse.
Whoa.
Yeah, right. Who's running Vexing Malice now?
I've run into a couple.
Maybe.
Of them. Yeah, Viscerai
okay.
Probably. I mean,
in blue,
it's not as much.
Maybe the red. Red is underrated.
Whoa.
There we go.
Now that is something. Now, if you said the yellow, Gary would be all ears, right? Gary loves a blue and a yellow drawn to the dark dimensions. I mean,
that card's pretty good. Drawn to the dark dimension is really good, but
yeah.
I don't think it's underrated.
It's
hard to know.
Rated.
Maybe can what's the one with the lady that makes you discard a card and she's
consuming
water? Consuming Volition. Why couldn't I think of that? I feel like that card has been underrated its whole life, but that's because it's like almost bad, but it's kind of good. So maybe that'll be my pick instead of Red Vexing Malice. I'm not sure though. There's a lot of Runeblade cards.
There are, and they're all good because you can give any of them go again. That's the coolest thing.
Crazy.
Darth Prentice, aka Greg, asked, "What's the Living Lurkers format looking like these days? Are the Rosetta heroes the MVPs of the format? I don't even know if some of them are still in that format. Can you explain to the people? You've explained it before, but
right.
We gotta know, what is the Living Lurkers format?"
You got it. So Living Lurkers is on the Living Legend leaderboard. Any hero with less than 100 points, that is the format. So it's like the idea we came up with as the antithesis to Living Legend is we want to play a format where, Betsy is a real consideration to play as one of the heroes. I would have to look at the numbers, but I think most of the Rosetta heroes have gotten out of that format. Should we take a quick?
I'm taking a look right now. What was the Is it 100?
Less than 100. So 99 is the maximum you can have.
The members of the Living Lurkers format are as follows: Max, the
Love this.
Hype, Nitro,
Yep.
Riptide, Lurker of the Deep, Vincent,
Still in there.
Still
God
in
damn.
there.
How many
It's
does Riptide have?
71. He got 20 this
God.
season.
God, what a fucker.
he's,
He's really strong in that
he's
format.
a menace. Verdance is in there.
Okay.
Teklo,
Yeah.
Acilio, and then
Yeah.
the big three: Arachne, Olympia, and Betsy.
Those are the big three. That's a see how sick is that format? When you
Format's
name
awesome.
those heroes, those are the ones to play. It's just so cool. No, I don't think Rosetta heroes are the MVPs of that format. Riptide is still a fuckwad and sucks to play against. Max is a real deck. The format's slow enough to where Teklo's a real deck.
I think Acilio's got to be a real menace in that.
Dude, Acilio's got to be insane. I have no clue how that goes. So yeah, it's try to, if you're at your local armory, be like, hey, we should play Living Lurkers. What's Living Lurkers? Well, A, go listen to the Attack Action podcast. B, it's less than 100 points, and you're like, you know what? I have Marvel Betsy, so why don't I just freaking build Betsy? Ooh, look at all these puzzle pieces. Hold on. We got Marvel Betsy right here. We'll show it off to the camera. Boom, there it is.
Beautiful.
$70, you can freaking have a Marvel Betsy and then play your Betsy deck.
I mean, she's close. I mean, maybe when the Mastery Guardian thing comes out.
Dude, if Log is not in, he's like not coming, I'm gonna like flip out. I can't take it that they do this in the game.
Log has gotta be in the expansion slot of the next set, right?
It should have been in those. Okay, anyway, this is a whole other podcast where I rant about how we got copper and then we're like, oh, sick, we're gonna have this whole money system, and then 100 years later we finally got a gold piece.
Yeah.
This is the same scenario.
Listen, patience is listen, in 10 years Arachne will LL, and you'll be sad.
Clip that. I will. But he'll be so good that it'll be awesome.
Yeah, he's close. I do think he's close. He's so cool.
He needs or they need one more either equipment piece or another specialization. That deck's close.
The deck is close. The Orc Knight has joined the fray. Jesse Harper asks, also states, the Falcon of the West has returned. What is the number one thing you wish to see in the game within the next year? So when we're sitting here talking on the podcast again in a year, what do you hope to have happened?
Well, outside of, I just don't want to be a one-note person where I'm like, well, Arachne gets another stick-ass specialization. I would like the, these kind of go hand in hand. I want to go to places in Wraith that are not on that map and that are just wildly different than the ones we've seen. And I feel like we need a better representation with that, a better representation of heroes that are not white people, you know what I mean? Or people in general and that sort of thing. So just trying to figure out where just make all four of those characters a diverse cast that doesn't have any trope in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would like to see within a year, is that we're having intention in thinking about those things. Because when you look at the people at your armory, at callings and stuff, we have a diverse group of people, when there's 600 of them all in the same hobby. So just represent them more.
Amen to that.
Amen to you.
Thank you. Well, you know what? obviously I would like to go to a different part of Wraith as well, but I want to see them pull off to the Savage Lands, like pulled off, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
flesh, actually,
yeah, see,
innovate.
now, yeah,
No, flesh
yeah.
out the brute class, and like kind of dive into what that like. Because they hint at the brute culture all the time. It's not just savage, right? There are so many hints at what that really is, and I really hope that we see something like that. Like I cannot wait to have my Dead Summer Heart episode whenever that does happen, because I'm gonna be like, oh,
Yeah.
did you see this? And he's gonna be like,
Are those some of your best listened to episodes when Kale comes on?
They are crowd favorites. I mean, my best listened to episodes are probably like LSS employees typically.
Oh yeah,
But
that makes sense.
you know, it drives the most engagement, I would say, because people
Yeah.
love talking about lore, and so do I. And Kale's
Yeah,
the
totally.
best. So
It's super fun, and that would be another thing I would love for them to like really invest in. You know,
mhm.
like if there was a 200-page novella, I would freaking read it.
Yeah,
You know?
that was. Side note: when I first started playing Magic, that was the coolest thing about like going, like, this is like in the late 2000s, going to the LGS, and then there were like Magic novels, like little paperbacks.
Yeah.
And that was just cool to exist, and then they phased it out because whatever,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Corporate overlords, probably the margin on that is not
Not
that
best,
great.
but
But yeah, Savage Lands would be super cool. I agree. The rounding out of Brute would be really nice. It's like they have all of these ideas that just have never come together in a cohesive way, it feels like. Even though
yeah.
KO is a rad hero and I really like KO, it just feels like, whoa, he's too good. We got to take away an arm. And
Yeah.
let's just make all 5 6s. How does that sound? Sounds great, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I just like the idea of they're not just savage, they're not just like
They have culture,
they have culture. Maybe, I mean, what they
a
hint
society.
at it with the gambling. Okay, that's kind of cool. That makes sense with the gameplay mechanics. But like, I want to see them to be like a proud, race that, like, maybe just Reinhar's the asshole. It's just like roaming around. So that'd be kind of neat.
Hell yeah.
We'll see. LSS, get on it. More work for you.
Cool.
Do our bidding. Now, Taylor, this has been one hell of an episode with you. You're one of my favorite people.
Thanks. Samesies.
I am sorry it's been a minute that you've been on.
It's totally fine.
We need to get you to have more episodes than Mo Bogsley. You might actually do, and we're just making up this this race for no reason. But check out Mo Bogsley next week. No, can you please plug everything you'd like to plug? And thank you, my friend.
Hey, thank you. If for some reason you listen to Fresh and Buds and you live in Humboldt County and enjoy sports, please come, or just in Northern California, come watch the South Fork Cubs basketball team that I coach. Maybe I'll get one person to do that. So there's that. I'm on Blue Sky now, which is apparently the new better Twitter. I'm enjoying it over there. It's not all ads and it's not all like a hellscape. It's kind of nice, and it's a really good Flesh and Blood community. And I'm like pretty close to having the exact same number of followers on each platform now.
That's
because
awesome.
we have the mass exodus or whatever. And so that's been cool. So find me over there. I'm at Taylor AAP. So Taylor Attack Action Podcast, which means you should listen to the Attack Action Podcast. We're on our 5th year. We've done 100 episodes. All episodes are free. If you like my vibe here, and you'll like that podcast. And then if you like that podcast, consider supporting us on Patreon. It's only like $4 a month, which we usually put out 4 hours of content minimum. So that's $1 per hour. I think that's a great rate. And plus you get access to our Discord, which is a really cozy place. And yeah. So yeah, I think that's all the stuff, right? We're on YouTube, Spotify, etc. Go check it out.
Yeah, please all check it out. They're the best over there. And if you listen to episode 100, you might hear a familiar voice pop up. Just
That's right.
At one point, make Taylor blush like a little schoolboy, and it was adorable. You can continue to find me on Twitter and Blue Sky more now these days. I mean, I keep the Twitter active just in case things get better. I don't think they will, but might as well. But I am active on Blue Sky at freshbudspod, same there as anywhere else. Check out the Buds Discord. Like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube. Check out the Patreon as well if you'd like. And then check out my other podcast I do with my cousin, Fresh Juice, where we talk about indie video games. That's a fun time over there. And finally, Taylor, food. You got to hit me with some food.
Right now. So it's fall time. If you can't tell I'm wearing my grandmother's beanie that her sister knitted for her back in the day. That the weather has changed, so I'm eating a lot of soup, a lot of stew, and I've recently gone vegetarian. So now I'm like, how do I do this without like putting an in-bone giant piece of meat in there to make it tasty? So I just made like a African style peanut stew, and it was pretty good. Sweet potatoes, peanuts, lots of spices, some beans, and I've been having that for lunch every day, and it is quite tasty. Proud of it.
That sounds amazing. I too would like to go vegetarian. I'm getting close. I quit the beef mostly, except for hot dogs every once in a while. But that's not. Let's be real, folks. That's not beef.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the value at Costco. You can't pass up.
$1.50.
I mean, come on.
It's amazing. And don't even get me started on the rotisserie chicken, which we did get yesterday. $5. Holy smokes. Pretty good, but that all sounds delicious. I love a good soup. I love a good stew. And it is getting chilly out for us folks a little bit closer to the North Pole than other people. And then maybe like also for the people closer to the South Pole.
Yeah.
I guess it's getting warm for you now. So I don't know where I'm getting at, but with all that said, I don't have time to talk to Charmer this week.
Because he's a flat earther. That's why. And we're talking about round earth.
Is he really?
Charmer's a flat earther. I mean, that's why I wouldn't have him on my
True.
podcast.
That's true. I mean, Charmer flies all over the world. And I mean, I guess when you're in a plane, it looks flat. I haven't really given a lot of thought. So, well, we'll get back to that next time. Thank you all and stay fresh.